Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm admitting the rest of the people. Okay. I think that should be everybody in now. Okay. Okay. Okay, it should be good now. So my name is Wellington Ballard. I graduated from high school in Freeport, Grand Bahama from Sunland Baptist Academy. This is just like a small introduction to myself. I graduated in 2016 from Sunland as the deputy head boy. I recently graduated from Acadia University with a Bachelor of Science in Biology, minor chemistry. I aspire to be a cardiologist one day. Hopefully I'll start that journey in September or August if I'm admitted to med school. So yeah, I just reached out because I wanted to help to prepare you guys for the BGCSE, for the biology BGCSE, because I know it can be tough. And in these circumstances we're in right now, I know it's like really, really stressful. So these are some classes. Okay, so today what we'll be doing is the 2013 BGCSE past paper. Can everybody pull it up, please? The 2013 BGCSE for biology past paper. We'll be going over the multiple choice. Just want to make sure that's up for everybody. Now, actually, you know what? I'll share my screen to make it easier. All right. All right, let me share it. I should have it right here. Are you guys able to see it? Just want to make sure. Like you can put in the chat like yes, or I just want to make sure everybody's on the same page. All right, good. I can't hear you. Oh, so. All right. Let me share it from a different source then. Yeah, I'll share it straight from Google Chrome. 1 second. I think you should be able to see this. You guys are able to see my screen right now, right? Just making sure before I start. You see the charts. Okay, yes, and everybody can hear me good, right? Okay. So yes, so I know it can be a little bit difficult. Since it's online, this is online. It's like it's virtual. So this week we'll still try to like make plans and stuff where I can offer my services as effective as possible. So like I don't know, depends like how much people show up next time, etc. We can break you guys up in groups, and I can just tutor like that. But for right now, we'll just do the multiple choice, and we'll go over the multiple choice. So how I want it to work is that I'll give you guys about 15 to 20 seconds to answer the multiple choice, and we'll go over each multiple choice and an explanation of why I chose that answer, or why you chose that answer, okay? And during that process, the good thing about that is that we can actually do some teaching and go over some topics. Okay, if you don't understand something clearly, you can just raise your hand and just say in the chat. I have my chat open up so I can see you guys when you send messages. You can just say, oh, I don't understand this, or you want me to explain something on why this answer is what it is, okay? Okay, so since everybody can see it, okay. So this is paper 1 from 2013. Paper 1 consists of the multiple choice. Oh, what happened just now? Sorry, I think I went back. Paper one consists of the multiple choice, so we'll be going over that. So question one, what structure makes up most of the plant cell's volume? You have A, chloroplast, B, mitochondria, C, nucleus, D, vacuole. I'll give you guys a couple seconds to just, you can either say, you can unmute your mic or you can text in the chat what you think the answer is for number one. Okay.
Excuse me.
Yes.
I need to log out the Zoom and log back in. I can't really hear you on the device I'm using, okay?
Okay, so you said you need to log out and log back in?
Yes.
Okay. So you're wondering if you will have a problem getting back in?
No, I should be fine going back in.
Okay.
I
Okay
just
then.
can't hear you on my tablet.
Okay then. No problem. Okay. So I saw a majority of the people said C, vacuole, and yes, that is correct. The reason why, let's go over the answers. Chloroplasts in the plants. Remember, it's only chloroplasts only found in the plant cell. Chloroplasts are very, very small compared to the other organelles. So that's out of the equation. So chloroplasts would be wrong. Mitochondria isn't too big at all. It's like a medium-sized, almost the same size. It's medium-sized. So that isn't the biggest, and it doesn't take up most of the cell's volume. The nucleus is kind of big, but it's not as big as the vacuole. Remember, with plant cells, a majority of the plant's volume is made up of the vacuole. And question, in animal cells, an animal cell, right? How is the vacuole? Is it large or is it big? I mean, is it large or is it small? Sorry about that. In the animals, yes, small. So that's one thing to remember too. So nice. So yeah, so the answer is D, vacuole. Question two, organic compounds always contain which element? Organic compounds always contain which element? Carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, or phosphorus? Wait for some other people to answer. Anybody else? Anybody else? Okay, so what I learned from my notes, from what I learned from my notes and research. So the answer is A, carbon. That's just, carbon is basically known in chemistry and biology as the key element. So mostly everything organic, mostly every organic compound or substance is made up of carbon. Okay, so like for example, like organic chemistry, that's just the study of carbons, and inorganic is when you don't have carbon in it. So yeah, that's a tricky one, but you just have to know the fact that the organic compounds always contain which element, which is carbon. It's just a fact. So the answer is A, carbon. The pie chart represents the main substance that makes up the human body. Name the substance represented by the letter R. A, carbohydrates, B, fats, C, protein, D, water. So if you just carefully look at the pie chart, just look at R. What does R represent? Okay. Give you guys a couple more seconds. Okay, I'm seeing a mix of answers here. Okay. So, okay. So let's just break the pie chart down, okay, before we answer the question. So P, what do you guys think will be P? 65% that makes up the human body. Water, correct. So yeah, so water makes up most of the human body. Okay, now let's go to Q. The second most abundant thing that makes up the human body. What would that be? What you guys think? Man, yeah, this is tricky. Oh, sorry about that again. So C would actually be protein. All right. And so the answer for R would be fats, actually. Fats makes up approximately about 10% of the human body. So first we would have water, and then proteins being the second most, and then fats. That's just like another fact that you have to know. It's not really gaining a conception from it. Okay, this one should be easy. So which of the following is produced by the mitochondria? Yes. Okay, yeah, so most of you guys got that. So the mitochondria is known as the powerhouse cell, is known as the powerhouse of the cell, which produces the energy that everything needs, that mostly everything needs. So yeah, so A, energy. So question 5 says, the table shows 4 compounds of the cell and their function. Which option is true for a plant and an animal cell? So which option is true for both? Is it A, B, C, or D? Which option is true for both? Okay, yeah. So majority of you guys said D, but let's just go over the other answers to see why they're not the answer. Okay, so with the cell membrane, the major function is the regulation of substances moving in and out of the cell, right? So plant cells actually have a cell membrane. And they have a cell wall. So in the option A, it says that plants do not have a cell membrane, which is false. But they also said that animals has a cell membrane, and that is true. So, wow, that keep on happening. Sorry about that. Yeah, so that's why it would be false. So let's go to B. The cell component will be the cell wall. The major function of it, is production of sport, right? Okay, so in plants, it's true that the cell wall is present, but the cell wall is only found in plants and it's not found in animal cells, okay? So only plants have the cell wall, not animals. Why incorrect?
So confused.
So let's go to option C, chloroplasts, right? The major function is the conversion of light energy to chemical energy of organic molecules. So we all know that plants do photosynthesis that is done with, alongside the chloroplasts, but animals do not do photosynthesis. So that means that they should not have chloroplasts. So it should be absent, and so chloroplasts should be absent in the animal cells. Okay, let's go to option D, which is the correct answer, right? Ribosomes or ribosomes, some may say. Major function is to synthesize proteins. They are found in both the plant and the animal cell. Okay, so the correct option is D. Question 6. Which of the following represents a fat molecule? Okay, good. Good, okay. Let's see, I think everybody said D. Correct. So you will have glycerol, and along or attached to the glycerol, which is the spar, you will have 3 fatty acids, okay? Or 3 hydroxyl groups. So the first one doesn't have any, which is A. B will have 1. C will only have 2, but D has the correct amount, which is 3. Correct. I think everybody got that right. Question 7. Which structure does not require an immediate source of energy to function? Right. Okay, I see some answers here. So let's go to option A. Right, the cilia is used for locomotion. Right, so the cilia is used by organisms to move. So in order to do that, it requires ATP, which is energy, right? So you actually need an immediate source of energy for it to function, okay? So the flagella, same thing like the cilia, is used for locomotion. So it's used to move from one place to the next within organisms. So you actually need ATP, which is an immediate source of energy for that. So A and B are all of the answer, all of the equation. So this may be tricky for some, right? C and D, root hair and the vacuole. I saw some, did anybody say D? I think so, yes. But okay, C, right? Does anybody want to explain to me why they picked C? For those of you who did, if you don't mind. You just want to mute your mic quick and just explain like why you said down to C.
I chose C because the root hair uses osmosis or something to it absorbs water from the ground through a certain process that doesn't necessarily need energy. It uses osmosis or active transport. I can remember.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, nice one. Okay, this one can actually be tricky too. Number 8. The table shows the body mass and recommended daily protein intake of 4 people. Which person needs the most protein per kilogram of body mass? That's a key word, per kilogram of body mass. So there's a little bit of math involved. You don't have to use a calculator for this if you really don't want to. But before you just jump to the answer, just read the question over and think it out. Okay. Anybody else? All right. Okay. Okay, so let's go over this question. See, yeah, this one is like kind of a trick question. So anybody who chose the answer D, do you want to explain to me why you chose D, please? Why did you choose D? Which person needs the most protein per kilogram of body mass? Why D?
I chose D because it's an adult man, and I know they will need to do more work and to be more active. So,
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
I chose D because it says which person needs the most protein per kilogram of body mass. And as we can see from the chart there, the adult man has the highest body mass. Although he doesn't have the highest daily protein intake, he still has the highest body mass. So that's why I chose D.
Okay. I saw somebody chose C. Why did you choose C?
I chose C because most people around that age use up a lot of energy very quickly, and so they need to replace that very quickly, and that's why I chose C. And even though they had the second highest body mass, their protein intake was the highest, so it seemed like the most sensible answer. I don't know.
Okay. So this is the answer I got, A. Okay. So the reason why I chose the answer A. So we have to basically break down this answer into parts. This is why I chose A. Okay. So it says which person needs the most protein per kilogram of body mass. Okay. So if a child has a body mass of 7, right, and the recommended daily protein intake is 14. That's basically double of their body mass. Their recommended protein intake is actually double. Okay, so for each kilogram, right, because, okay, we can go on, if you go on your calculator, right, I'm trying to explain the equation to you. If you go on your calculator, if we try to calculate per kilogram of body mass, if the recommended is 2 for the, if recommended is 14 for the daily intake and the body mass is 7, it would be 14 divided by 7, and that would give you how much protein, how much recommended protein is needed per kilogram. Okay, I know that was kind of a confusing answer. Does everybody see where I'm getting from? Even though the child is the smallest with 7 kilograms, the recommended daily dosage is 14. So it means that for each kilogram, it's recommended that they need two doses of protein per kilogram. Okay, compared to, let's say, B, you see the daily protein intake is 25, but their body mass is 28. That's almost a 1-to-1 ratio. Okay, so that 1-to-1 ratio still isn't more than the 2-to-1 ratio for the child under 1. Okay, let's go for the boy of 16 years old. Okay, so the body mass per kilogram, say he's 63, right? He's 63 kilograms. So the daily protein intake is 38. That's basically only half of what his body size is. Okay, so you guys see how I got that answer? I want to make sure I explain to everybody that's why. I want to make sure everybody got the answer, like why I chose A and not D. Does everybody see that? Okay. Yeah, so it's basically just reading the question, just understanding and breaking it down, because this is actually a trick question for me too. Initially, when I first read the multiple choice, I said, oh, wait, I saw 30 and 37. I said it has to be one of those two. But when I read the question again, and it said, which person needs the most protein per is the key word there, per kilogram. That means, so when you say per kilogram, you are basically saying 1 kilogram, you need how much protein? And for the child, 1 kilogram is recommended, the daily dose is 2, compared to the others that vary around 1 to 1, okay? So yes, that's why I chose A. So you just have to be careful when the examiners try to throw questions like that to you. Just take your time and read it over. Okay, question 9. The graph shows the effect of heat on vitamin C content of cabbage. Approximately, how long did it take for half of the vitamin C to be lost? The graph shows the effect of heat on the vitamin C content of cabbage. Approximately how long did it take for half of the vitamin C to be lost? Okay. Okay, good. So most people said B. Yeah, so we know it started off at 100, right? Let's just say 100%. Look at the y-axis. And the question asks, how long did it take for half? So half of 100 will be 50. So we would go on our y-axis, the 50. Go across to our plot and see where it connects. And then we would go straight down. Sorry, yeah, we would go straight down to our x-axis. So it's approximately like 3.8 minutes, and the closest answer there is 4 minutes. So the correct answer is B. Okay, so next question. Which of the following represents the reagent used in the test for reducing sugar and the correct results? Okay, correct. See, everybody said iodine. Wait, did most of you guys say iodine? No. Which of the following represents? So everybody? All right. What is iodine used to test?
Iodine is used to test the presence of starch.
Sorry, but I couldn't hear you just now.
Iodine is used to test the presence of starch.
Yes. So what would be used to test reducing sugar? Would it be iodine too for that? That's the question. So iodine is used to test starch, right? So is it the same thing? Can it be used to test reducing sugar? Yes. So I saw everybody said iodine, but the correct answer is actually the Benedict solution. The Benedict solution is used to test reducing sugar, okay? And iodine is used to test starch. Yes, you use the Benedicts. Yes, correct, Jessica. And so don't worry about this, even though I have some of my notes. Hopefully you guys I can post it to you guys so you can see why I chose my answer. I have it on OneNote. I can convert it into a PDF so you guys can use for reference even afterwards, okay? I would try see if I can get an email sent to everyone on my notes and everything of this paper. Okay, where were we? So the correct answer would be A, Benedict solution, and the result would be brown. Remember that iodine is used to test starch. So that's just something you have to commit to memory. Okay, question 11. Which of the following features belong to dicotyledons only? Okay, yes. So dicotyledons, they would have floral parts in 4s or 5s, right? They would have tap roots, they would have broad leaves, and 2 cotyledons. Okay, so can anybody give me any features of monocotyledons? Give me like three or 4 features of monocotyledons, please. This is the opposite, yes. Narrow leaves. What else would be a feature of monocotyledons? One cotyledon, yes, you can easily see the answer just from the name itself. Mono means 1 and di means 2. So correct, 1 cotyledon. What other features are there? Means yes, correct. Perfect. And they have, yes, fibrous roots, or we call them adventitious roots. Yes, correct. So that was a good one. Which is a disadvantage of using pesticides to spray crops? Yeah. Okay, correct. Yeah, so A, they help prevent the spread of malaria, not necessarily so, only if the pesticides affect mosquitoes. So that one is incorrect. Sorry for that. So they increase the production of crops. No, that was the main purpose of pesticides. They kill pests which destroy crops. That's actually a good thing. We want them to do that. And they kill some of the animals that are not pests. So that's the correct answer, because unfortunately, pesticides target a general group. So it's basically made for the greater good. If so, unfortunately, some of the good pests are killed, I should say. Well, some of the good animals are killed, which are not pests, but that's just how it is. 13, the diagram below shows a part of a food web for organisms in a lake. Which organism is the producer? Yes, that's an easy one for you guys. Okay, good. Okay, good, yes. The answer is 8, algae. Question 14. The diagram shows the trophic levels of organisms in a spinach garden. The spinach garden yields 6 16,000 kilojoules of energy. How much energy is available to the man if he eats the birds? How much energy is available to the man if he eats the birds? Okay, so does anybody want to explain to me what is the rule for the tropic levels in terms of the energy intake going up the levels? Approximately how much energy reaches the next level? That's the answer I want. So does anybody want to explain their answer? Yeah, so about 10%, yes, so approximately about 10%. Yes, okay, correct, yes. So about approximately 10% of the, only 10% of the energy goes up each tropic level. So for 14, right, as you go, yes. So spinach, we would start with 16,000. We would divide that by 10, and that's how much energy reaches the caterpillars. So that would be, you take off a zero, so quick math, that would be 1,600, right? So, and then if we go up a next level, if we go up a next level, only 10% reaches, right? So 10% of 1,600 would be 160, okay? And then let's just say if the man eats the birds, right? And the energy jumps up another tropic level, that would be 160 divided by 10, which would be 60. That would be how much? So does anybody have a different answer? You guys still have the same answer? Yes, okay, good, perfect. So just remember, as you go up each tropic level, approximately, the rule is that approximately only 10% of the energy is readily available. So which group of, question 15, which group of animals contains only vertebrates? Which group of animal contains only vertebrates? Okay, yeah, so this should be an easy one too. C, you have a frog, you have a parrot, seahorse, and turtle. So worms belongs to annelids. So B is out of the equation. Crab belongs to crustaceans. So A is out of the equation, right? And D, lobster is still part of crustaceans. So D will be out of the equation. So the correct answer would be C. For 15, C. So which of, question 16, which one shows a major way in which untreated sewage harms fish in the sea? Okay, correct. Majority of you said, well, everybody said A. So bacteria in the sewage uses up most of the oxygen that the fish needs to breathe. So they are bad bacteria that in order for them to grow, and they are in untreated sewage. So in order for them to grow, they use up the oxygen that the fish would need. So if the bacteria uses up the oxygen, that means that there's less oxygen for the fish, or little to no. So that's one major way, or the main way untreated sewage is harmful for the fish in the sea. So the answer for 16 is A. Okay, now this one. This can be a little bit tricky too. Which of the following food substances should be eaten to make the most efficient use of energy from the sun? So what do we get from the sun? What do we get from the sun? Okay. So which of the following food substances should be eaten to make the most efficient use of energy from the sun? Okay. So to me, this is actually also a conflicting. Okay, yes. So the answer I chose was B, right? The reason why I chose B is because I interpreted the question to be, so we get vitamin D from the sun. So which food helps our body to absorb more vitamin D? So fats is known to help our body absorb vitamin D. And all of the answers, the possible answers they gave us, beans, cheese, eggs, and steaks. Per gram, cheese has the most fats. So if we eat a lot of cheese, which has a lot of fats, that will actually help us to absorb more vitamin D. So that's how I arrived at my answer for 17. Comes under the topic nutrition. Does anybody get that? The reason why I chose that answer personally was because fats. It is a known fact that fats helps the body to absorb vitamin D. So I chose the fattiest food per gram, which was cheese. Okay, for 18. The diagram shows a leaf which is a part of a white mangrove plant. Ants were found near the part marked A, right here. What does this suggest could be a possible function of part A? Sure, yes. Okay, so an explanation. Well, the correct answer is C, right? It's a mutualistic relationship between the mangrove plants and the ants, right? So by A, it's called the nectaries. By A, the little thumb, right? That's called the nectaries. So what it does is that it produces sugars that attracts ants. So if ants have food, which is the sugars, they will come to the plant, okay? So that's how the plant helps the ants. Now, does anybody know how the ant helped the plant? Since it's a plus relationship. So does anybody know why exactly or how the ant helps the plant? So the plant helps the ant by producing sugar. So what in turn does the ants do? Just a general question. Okay. So what the ants, unfortunately it's not pollination. So it could be a fact, but the main fact that I had in my notes was that, and after research is that, so what the ants does is that the ants protects the plants from pests, right? So the ants would be attracted. Yes, it can actually go, yes. So the main one I got was that the ants would help control the pest around the white mangrove plant, which in turn, the plant basically feeds the ants. And I saw somebody said somebody said to excrete salt. That is actually something that mangroves do because of the environment they're in. They're in a high salty environment. But that particular part A, which is the nectaries, that part is not used to excrete salt, okay? That's used to excrete sugar. But you're right in terms of mangrove plants, actually, they secrete salt. When the conditions get really, really bad in high salinity periods, they actually can secrete salt. But that part A is used to secrete sugar to attract the ants. So 19, the diagram below shows solid waste found in the sea. Why is Q more harmful than P? Okay. Okay, correct. So personally, I think everybody's correct when you said C, that Q, we all know that Q takes a very long time, which is plastic, to break down. That's why it's really, really harmful to the environment. And also, yes, boom. So technically you can answer with B and C. I was getting to that. So with plastics are made up of harmful chemicals. So when in fact, if they actually do break down, they release harmful chemicals into the ecosystem. So B can actually be a possible answer too. I can assure you that it can be B or it can be C. So correct, Taylor.
I have a question. What if the question was reversed?
What if the question was reversed in terms of why is P, say why is P more harmful than Q?
Yes, sir. What would be the reason?
In terms of that, to be honest, I can't see no reason why P is more harmful than Q. There would have to be some answer. No, personally, no. I can't see why cardboard box, because cardboard box, they actually break down way faster than plastic balls. And plus, it's not made up of as much of dangerous chemicals as the plastic balls. So if it was reversed, I think I know what you're trying to do, but I don't think they can actually give you a question like if they reverse it, there would be no answer for this. Does that answer your question? So you don't have to like worry for like a reverse question. Sorry for that again. What question were we on? Sorry for that. Now let's go down some more. Okay. Question 20. Which is the most important method used today to protect the mangrove ecosystem? Yes. That's a straightforward answer. C, government passes laws to preserve the ecosystem. That's a straightforward answer right there. So 21, which piece of equipment is used mainly in cleaning large commercial farms in the Bahamas? Correct, tractor. 22, the diagram shows a variegated leaf from a plant kept in bright light for 6 hours. A leaf was removed from the plant and tested for starch using iodine solution. Which result is expected? And also too, when answering multiple choice, if you remember in one of the previous questions, they stated it was a confliction between the Benedict solution and iodine. So right here, they actually gave you a little bit of hint. So starch is used, iodine is used to test for starch. So remember in the question with the Benedict solution, you could easily cancel out iodine solution and circle your answer as Benedict solution. So just a reminder, like, just keep that in mind when you're taking the exam. Let me see the answers. Close. Okay, yes. So I see most of you said C, but the correct answer would be B. Does anybody want to explain to me why is the answer B and not D? Does anybody want to explain quick? Okay, so the reason why the answer is B and not D. Okay, so with this experiment, right before you place it in iodine solution, it is boiled for approximately about 30 seconds or so to get rid of the green color, right? So from that, once you know the experiment protocols, you can cancel out C and D, right? So now let's look at A and B. In the presence of starch, when you use an iodine solution, what color would it show in an iodine solution in the presence of starch? Does anybody know when you're testing?
A blue-black color.
Yes, exactly. Okay, and for negative tests, what would it show? So if it's blue-black for positive, so what would be the negative test? Which means
yellow,
yes.
Yellow, brown, or brownish.
Yes, correct. So it would be yellow, brown, or brownish. So that's why I chose B. Okay, question 23. Wait, first, does everybody get that for 22? It's basically just understanding that you would boil the leaf first, which gets rid of the green color, right? So before you put the iodine on. So once you do that, we know that C and D are out of the equation. And the only positive and negative colors for the iodine solution test are blue-black for positive, and for negative, it's yellow-brown. So the white means that, okay, just to explain the white, we know that if parts of the leaf is white, that means that no chloroplasts or like photosynthesis or chlorophyll is there, right? So that means that since that process is not happening, there will be no starch, right? So if there's no starch in the white part, that means that in the iodine solution test, it would be yellow-brown. So the white part would be yellow-brown, right? So in the green part, after you boil it, I would say it would change color, right? The green would change color probably to like yellowish or brownish. But when you put the iodine solution on it, since that part had green, which had chlorophyll, and what's not, and it was used for photosynthesis, that means that it has starch in those areas. Okay, so if it has starch in those areas, the iodine solution will show that starch is present there, and so that's a positive test, which is blue-black. So question 23, which leaf structure is eternal? Yes, so personally, I didn't like this question at all because this can be confusing to the students, because technically the phloem, right? Just okay. Question: does anybody know what the phloem does? What is the function of the phloem?
The phloem transports food and nutrients.
Across the
What?
plant. So what is the xylem does?
Transports water and minerals.
Okay, correct. So those are two transportation methods, basically. Well, transportation structures in the plant, right? So personally, I would say for this, the answer could have been B or it could be C, technically, okay? Because the waxy layer is technically outside and the epidermis is the top layer too. But personally, I would choose my answer to be B. So question 24. What do we call the specialized tissue in plants which transports water? Well, we just talked about that. Yeah, it's the xylem. It's the xylem. So the phloem transport, she said just now, the phloem transport basically fluid that's made by the plant to the other parts of the plant, okay? So the xylem is used to transport water, mainly. So 24 would be D. Which diagram shows a cross-section of part of a leaf as seen under a light microscope? Which structure shown allows carbon dioxide to enter the leaf? Okay. Okay. Does anybody know what is D? What is T?
The guard cell.
Guard cell.
Okay, good. What is A?
Epidermis.
Waxy cuticle.
What is C? What do we call C?
Spongy mesophyll.
C? Not really.
I think C is the air sac.
Yeah, C is just the air sac or air space. Okay. So what we call B?
Who chooses?
Is it
B
the
is the
palisade?
palisade, yeah, palisade mesophyll.
Yes. So B is the palisade mesophyll. How many types of mesophyll do we have?
2. Technically 3.
Yeah. We have 3 types of mesophyll. But the question says which structure is shown that allows carbon dioxide to enter the leaf. So the answer would be D. So based on conditions, on different conditions, right? So the guard cell or stroma, right? So it opens and closes depending on the environment, right? So and that allows the air or the carbon dioxide and oxygen to flow in and out of the plant. So the answer would be T. So question 26. The diagram shows a healthy potted plant. What would be the effect of growing this plant without nitrogen? Oh, sorry about that. Could we look at to make sure answer 23? Okay. Okay, 1 second, Joshua. Let me just do 26 first, and we'll go back. So 26. What is nitrogen needed for? We know that nitrogen is needed for plant growth and is also essential part of the chlorophyll. So that's the 2 main things that nitrogen is needed for in plants. So for plant growth and for the chlorophyll, right? So yes, correct. So the answer would be B, stunted plant growth and pale yellow leaves. If the nitrogen is, if there isn't enough nitrogen or anything, So that means that the plant will be stunted in its growth. That means that it won't grow anymore or not as much. And since nitrogen is used and it's essential in the chlorophyll structure, that means that the chlorophyll we know has a green color, right? So if nitrogen isn't there to fully make the chlorophyll, that means that the green color wouldn't be there and we would have pale yellow leaves, okay? So that's why the answer is B. Okay, now I saw somebody who crashed it. Blood black. 25. Okay.
My question was asking about question number 23, where you said the option could have been between B and C. That was the guard cell and the phloem. And I was just like wondering, like, because if we look at the diagram, we see that we have A, which was the waxy cuticle, and B, the palisade mesophyll, C, the air space, and D was the guard cell. I realized that there's nothing under the guard cell. So would they like, because we only could choose one answer in the exam. So would they like, I guess, consider the guard cell being on the underside of the cell because there's no waxy cuticle on the underside of the cell protecting it from the outside. It's just a guard cells. So would the answer like be the phloem, or would we like be able to interchange them?
Okay, so good question, right? So to be honest, this question can actually confuse like a lot of people because in my biology textbook and notes I have, right, they actually stated that all three options, A, B, and C, are known as internal structures of the leaf. So they said epidermis, the guard cell, and the phloem. I actually have my notes and everything to show you guys. Hopefully I can get these emailed to you and everybody so they can see. But I get your question because you're saying that the guard cell is basically on the bottom part of the plant and there's no waxy cuticle, right? There's no waxy cuticle, so technically you're saying that it isn't really inside, right? But the leaf structures that we consider to be external would be stuff like, let me see, like the blade and what's not. Can anybody give me external structures of the leaf? So I can probably explain this better to you guys. Like three, I think that's like three. Yeah, it's like you have like the apex, the blade, yeah, and lamina and stuff like that. So that would be considered the external structures of the leaf, right? And in my textbooks for proof, actually they said that all three, which is the epidermis, they actually give me the epidermis, the guard cell, and the phloem, can actually be the internal structures of the leaf. Okay, so with that, to be honest, personally, you can't really do nothing about that. But since this is so conflicting, what I'll do, since I am going off my notes, but I'll do further research as well. What I'll do is I'll get back to you guys on 23 to make sure next week on chat. But to me, it can be all three, either A, B, or C. Okay, because you guys seem to know that you know the external parts of the leaf, and you don't see none of those here, except for the wax layer. So the epidermis, the guard cell, and the phloem. Does that answer your question? I know it can be confused, and to be honest, I really don't like that question.
Excuse me, I also have a question. Okay, so how we keep getting like 2 answers and 3 answers and stuff, but like he said, there's only 1 answer. So how would that work exactly when they're marking our exams if we have like 2 possible answers?
Okay, so I mean there wasn't a lot of possible or conflicting answers. I think it was only like 2. I think one was, which question was that? Oh, one was with the plastic, right? Yeah, with the plastic and with the and just now, and I think there's the next one. So in cases like those, you would try to choose the most reasonable answer. To be honest, I know that sounds like kind of hard to do still, but you only can choose, or choose the most sensible answer. Or I would say, personally, I would say the most reasonable answer, because there can be 2 questions, there can be 2 options within the multiple choice that is reasonable. but you would just have to use your discretion and hopefully choose the most reasonable answer. Because 2 can be sensible, but it's just the most reasonable answer in those situations. I know it can be frustrating, it can be tough at times, but that's just how it is, unfortunately. But yeah. Yes. We have to take an educated guess. Yes, I'm making educated guesses. And so the process, I just want to give you guys a tip. So what I do in all of my exams, especially if they're multiple choice, is that I do a process of elimination. And I try not to spend too much time on one question, because I think how much time do you guys have for this? I think an hour, right? I think it's 50 questions. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's an hour or so. So you don't want to get hung up on one question. You don't want to spend like 10 minutes, 5 minutes on one question. So what I would do, if in those cases, right, where there's a conflicting answer, you don't know the answer exactly, I would circle the number and I would come back. And then when I go back after I finish all of my questions, I would do a process of elimination, okay, to make it easier on yourself to choose to make an educated guess. Because that's what you want to do. Even though if you don't completely know the answer, try your best to make an educated guess, okay? Because more than likely, you don't know that can actually be the correct answer. And that stands for conflicting answers, such as the one like the plastic and the cardboard one, and the ones where you just don't simply know the answer, but you can make an educated guess based on just a process of elimination. So that's just what I do. I personally spend about, I would say, a minute on each. I spend a minute on each question. I think if the hour, okay, say for example, this paper, I think it's an hour, right? I think it's an hour. That means you should spend about a minute on each question. And if it's an hour and a half, I would say spend about a minute and 10 seconds on each question. So because you want to try to finish the whole exam. And the next thing is that important tip. Do not leave any questions blank, okay? So once you leave a question blank, it's automatic X, right? So still try to answer every question. That goes from multiple choice straight down to the extended part to paper 2, paper 3, okay? And I just have one question too. Is everybody in here doing the extended version of the paper 3? Or everybody's just taking the core or core extended? So everybody's doing extended? Some people doing core, some people doing extended. Okay. I just want to gauge too, because extended has to do with like essay questions. Extended. Okay. Not sure. Okay. Okay, so I know I'm trying my best to tackle. Okay. Okay. So what I'll do, so within the coming weeks in the bootcamp, what I'll do is I'll try and make a plan for those of you who are doing core and extended, like how to best answer your extended questions, because answering the questions too for extended is really, really important, making sure like you have a structured answer or a structured essay and stuff like that. So we can go over that over the next couple of weeks. Which question were we on? Sorry about that. I lost count. Which question were we on? 27? Okay. Okay, let's go through these quick. In a typical green plant, the rate of transpiration is affected by the behavior of which structures? You have the guard cells, the polycyte cells, the phloem cells, or the group hair cells. Correct. So it would be the guard cells, shown on the stroma, and that basically controls, because the stroma, think of it as like, sorry, like 2 kidney beans like this, and it basically can open and close based on the conditions. So if, let's say if it's like hot or cold, like if it's really hot one day and cold one day, or like it's really humid, I should say it's humid, because humidity has to do with air moisture and stuff like that. So the plant can basically adapt to the conditions around, and it can open and close, and that's done by the guard cells and the stromal cells. So 27, correct. 27 would be A. So 28. Which animal possesses a heart with 2 atria and 2 ventricles? Correct. So it would be, yes, it would be C, pig. The diagram shows a vertical section through a mammalian heart. Which labeled chamber pumps out oxygenated blood? All right. Let's go. Which labeled chamber pumps out oxygenated blood? Okay. So this is a good question. This is a good question for me to teach on this. Yes. Okay. So the correct answer is D, actually. Okay. But I'm going to go over the blood circulation so everybody can understand why the answer is D, and also you can get some other answers from this and some clarification. Okay. So right here, right, this is what we call the vena cava, right? We have two. We have the superior vena cava and we have the inferior vena cava, right? So remember, on the left side of the diagram of the heart, right? That's actually on this side. This is actually your right side because it's opposite, right? So remember, on the diagram, the left side is the right, and the right side is the left. Always remember, okay, it's inverted. Okay, now getting back. So blood from the organs, let's just say the organs, is coming up into the superior vena cava. Okay, so it enters in the superior vena cava. Now, the type of blood is deoxygenated blood that's coming from the body. Okay, and it's going into the heart via the vena cava. Now, what chamber is B? Does anybody know what chamber is B?
Left atrium.
B would be the right atrium. Because remember how I said just now that on the picture or on the diagram, right, it's inverted. So on the diagram, the left side is the right and the right side is the left. Okay? So right here would be the right atrium. Remember, it's inverted. Okay? So the right atrium, right? And there are valves right here, like the bicuspid valve, that opens up and allows blood to enter the next chamber. What is the next chamber?
The right ventricle.
Correct. Okay, and from the right ventricle, what blood vessel does the blood enter to go where? So that's two answers right there. So the blood goes from the right ventricle and it goes into the,
That's the vena cava.
okay. So right there, I'm going to explain this right now. So we have here, we have our valve. It opens up. It goes right here to the right ventricle, and it goes up into the pulmonary artery. Okay. Remember that there's an exception with pulmonary artery and pulmonary vein. Okay. What type of blood does arteries normally carry? What type of blood? Oxygenated, correct, right? Except for the pulmonary artery, okay? The pulmonary artery carries deoxygenated blood, okay? So that's the only exception. All arteries except for the pulmonary artery carries deoxygenated blood. And remember that arteries carry blood to and veins carry blood from, okay, or away from. So blood comes from the right ventricle, right? And it goes into the pulmonary artery. This is still deoxygenated blood, and it goes to the lungs. Okay, so in the lungs, you know, we have the alveoli, etc., that causes the blood to be oxygenated, and it comes here, right? And it returns to the heart. So what vessel does blood return to the heart with? So what is this vessel right here?
Pulmonary vein.
Correct. So this is the next exception for vein. All veins carry deoxygenated blood, except the only one exception is the pulmonary vein. Okay, but all other veins carry deoxygenated blood. And from here, we go into the left, into the left atrium, okay? And then here you have a valve which opens and closes, right? And then it enters the last chamber, which is the fourth chamber, which is the right ventricle, okay? My bad, the left ventricle, okay? Because remember, the right side is the left, okay? So it comes from the pulmonary vein. It goes into the left. It goes into the left atrium. It goes into the left ventricle, and then it goes through the rest of the body. Okay, so what would be this vessel? It's the biggest one. Well, it's the biggest one in the
Vena Cava. Superior.
Yes, it would be the aorta, actually. Okay, the vena cava is just want to explain to you that the vena cava right here it carries blood to the heart from the rest of the body. You have two vena cavas. You have the superior vena cava that carries blood from the top part, superior, right? The top part of your body mainly. And then you have the inferior vena cava that carries blood to the heart from your legs and your extremities, okay? So the vena cava is over here. So the aorta is the biggest, basically, it's the biggest vessel in your body, and it carries blood to the rest of the body. So it pumps blood, oxygenated blood out of the heart. Okay, so can anybody tell me why does this part of the heart looks bigger, or like it looks like it has more muscle or something? This part, do you know?
That's because the ventricles have more pressure or something like that. It's more anyways, okay, never mind.
It's okay.
It also, I don't know.
Hey, sorry that you're breaking up. Yes, I see it.
It pumps the oxygenated blood out the left ventricle by squeezing all of it out to the vein, out of the vein.
Okay, I'll explain to you why. This part would be more muscular, right? Because remember, this part over here is only needed to pump blood to your lungs, right? So you don't need as much muscle, although you still need muscle to pump blood to your lungs. But this side over here, where we have C and D, right? We have the left ventricles. This side is where the aorta is connected, and the aorta carries the blood to the rest of the. So you would need more muscle, right? You would need more muscle to pump blood to the rest of the body compared to just the lungs. Okay, so that's why you would see here that the left side is more enlarged than the right side. Okay, so the muscle is bigger because you need to pump the blood to the rest of the body compared to the next side where it's just the lungs. Does everybody understand that? Just want to make sure everybody understands that. So that's why, okay, yeah. So that's why that part of the heart is bigger. Your left side, because your left side pumps body to all the organs and etc. in your body. Okay, 30. 1 cubic millimeter of blood contains 5 million blood cells with no nuclei and 10,000 blood cells with nuclei. Which statement is true? Which statement is true? All right. Okay, so I saw some people said A and some people said T. Okay, so which cell has no nuclei, the red blood cells or the white blood cells?
Red blood cells.
Yes, the red blood cells has no nuclei. So that means that the white blood cells have the nuclei, right? So the question says that there's 5 million blood cells with no nuclei, which is the red blood cells, right? And 10,000 blood cells with nuclei, which is the white blood cells. So the answer I got was 8, right? So I think I saw somebody said the next answer, which was, somebody said D. Okay, so you said D. I'm just going to explain why it isn't D. So there are, what, 4,990,000 more white blood cells than red blood cells. So as we said, the white blood cells are the ones with the nuclei, right? So that means that there's less. So this is incorrect, right? So what can be conflicting to some is actually A and C, okay? Because although it's sort of true that there are, in this statement, right, it's sort of true, but we actually don't say it like this. This is an approximation, right? So we would use times when explaining this. But answer C says there are 4,990,000 more red blood cells than white blood cells. Even though when you do the math, it is correct, right? When you minus 5 million by 10,000, right? So the correct way to say it, and since it's an approximation, we would use times to explain it. Okay, so that's why C and D is out of the equation. You wouldn't say there are this certain amount of red blood cells and there's this certain amount of white blood cells. We would use basically approximation, so we use times. And if you times 10,000 by 5,000, yes, if you times 10,000 by 500, you would get 5 million. Okay, just to check your answer. But we should always know that there are more red blood cells than white blood cells. So that's why the correct answer is A. There are 500 times, based on this statement, there are 500 times more red blood cells, which does not have no nuclei.
Possibly.
That's white blood cells.
By getting a lot of information. Look at this. Lauren, look at this.
Question 31. Sorry, see in the chat, the only way it could be D is if the blood was taken from an extremely sick person. Well, yes, okay. Just for like a fun fact, I guess, Taylor said extremely sick person. Okay, yeah, so if you take blood from an extremely sick person, you would notice their white blood cell count is higher. Okay, so does anybody want to tell me the function of white blood cells? I know we have different white blood cells, but the general function of the white blood cells, does anybody want to tell me that?
It engulfs germs.
Okay, a more general term? Right.
It fights off pathogens.
Yeah, so that's what I was looking for, okay? So basically, white blood cells, it helps fight off pathogens and like diseases and stuff like that. So you would notice that if you take blood from a sick person, their white blood cell count would be elevated, okay? So that's just what Taylor said in the chat. The only way it could be D is if the blood was taken from an extremely sick person, but it wouldn't be 5 million though. Like it wouldn't be a lot, but it would be elevated than normal. So 31. Which diagram shows a typical animal? This diagram shows a typical animal cell. Which part is the site of anaerobic respiration? Question. Where does aerobic respiration happen?
The mitochondria, I think.
Yeah. And where's that?
That would be D.
Correct. Now the question asks, which part is the site of the anaerobic respiration?
That would be A, the cytoplasm.
Correct. Okay, so anaerobic respiration is respiration, what happens when there's no oxygen, right? Oxygen is not needed for it to happen. And that happens in the cytoplasm. Okay, so aerobic respiration happens in the mitochondria, which is the powerhouse of the cell. That happens in D's. But for this question, it asks for anaerobic respiration. So it happens in the cytoplasm, which is A. So question, what is C?
The cell membrane.
Vacuole.
C?
Wait, C?
Wait, what C?
Cell wall.
Cell membrane.
Cell membrane.
Yeah, so C would be the cell membrane. Just remember that the cell wall is only found in plant cells. So it would be absent in animal cells, okay? So you only have one coat, so that would be the cell membrane. You don't have the cell wall in animal cells. So what would be B? I know it looks kind of like confusing, but B. Just like take a guess. Well, personally, I said it would have been the nucleus. The reason why I said it wouldn't be a vacuole is because remember in animal cells that the vacuole is small compared to a plant cell. So yeah, I would say like B would be the nucleus. So 32. Which equation represents aerobic respiration in mammals? Which equation represents aerobic respiration in mammals? Okay. So the correct answer for this would be D. The reason why, yes, D. The reason why it's D is because we know as humans we need oxygen, right? So when we breathe in normally through our lungs and our nose and everything happens in the lungs, that's aerobic respiration, right? So that happens in the presence of glucose and it needs oxygen, right? And the byproducts of that are carbon dioxide because we exhale carbon dioxide. And in the process of that reaction, water is made, okay? So that's why the answer is D. Question 33. The diagram represents urinary system. Which structure in males transports urine and semen? Okay. Yes. So okay. Yeah, so the answer is C. So B would be known as the ureter, U-R-E-T-E-R. And the ureter is a vessel that carries urine directly from the kidney to the bladder for storage, okay? So that only has, so the ureter only carries urine. But C where we have the urethra, right? The urethra that carries semen as well as urine. Okay, so it's, you can actually get confused with those two. So B, we have the ureter, which carries urine from the kidney to the bladder right here, where they store urine, and then C is the urethra. So the correct answer would be C. More water is lost from the skin on a hot day than on a cold day. What statement is a correct explanation for this? Okay, let's see the others. Okay, so most of the answers we said was A. So it helps to control the body temperature. Does anybody want to explain to me what is the definition of homeostasis?
That is the different processes carried out in the body to achieve equilibrium.
Yes. So yes, correct. So basically homeostasis is the maintenance of a constant temperature or like blood level or glucose level, what's not. So it's the maintenance of a controlled variable, of something controlled despite external changes. Yes, so it's the maintenance of an internal environment. Yes, that's the word I was looking for. The maintenance of an internal environment despite external changes or despite the external environment, right? So the reason why we got A is because on a hot day, right, you would sweat to basically cool your body down, right? So sweat is made to cool your body down. So that helps control the body temperature. That's just a part of your body performing homeostasis. That's in thermal regulation, okay? That's in thermal regulation. So we sweat to help control our body temperature. That comes in the homeostasis and thermal regulation. Because, okay, on the next thing, for D, on a hot, on a hot day, somebody said it releases excess water out of the body. Technically, on a hot day, you wouldn't want to release excess body out of your body because that could lead to dehydration. Although we sweat, that sweat is mandatory. I should say it's needed to cool the body down. So technically, that sweat is in excess. But when you get to the point where you're releasing excess water out of your body on a hot day, something isn't right. Okay, because you want to keep the excess water in because that can actually lead to dehydration. But sweat is okay because that's your body process of thermal regulation and cooling your body down under homeostasis. So the correct answer is A. Okay, so 35. The table shows the daily water loss from a typical human being. What is the difference in the amount of water by the kidneys and the amount lost by the skin? Just a little bit of math right here. Okay. Anybody else? So first looking at the question, they made the same mistake too. Until I read the question again. At first I picked D, but the answer is not D. Does anybody want to give it a next try? Yes, C. So why is the answer C? Explain to me why is the answer C.
C, because of the evaporation from the skin and the sweat. And when you add those two together, it's 450. So when you subtract 450 from the 1500, you get 1050.
Yes, correct. So does everybody see why we got that answer? So to calculate the amount of water loss by the skin, you have to take into consideration the evaporation from the skin, including or addition to the sweat. Okay, so evaporation from the skin is 350 plus the sweat, which is 100. So that gives you a volume of water loss by the skin in total would be 450, right? So we would minus 150 by 450, and we would get 1050 cubic meters. Okay, per day. So the answer would be C. 36. The table shows hormones and their related functions. Which hormone correctly matches its function? Okay, yes, everybody said the correct answer for this. Hormone insulin, the function, it lowers the amount of glucose in the blood. Okay, testosterone, they said, it induces the mammary gland to produce milk. We know that only females can do that. It's mostly found in males, although females have a little bit of testosterone, that's still out of the equation. Adrenaline, they said that it causes the uterine lining to break down. That's not true. Does anybody want to explain to me what does adrenaline do to the body?
Adrenaline is a hormone that stimulates, it's basically, it activates the fight or flight instinct.
Yes, exactly. And yes, there's a lot of things that can happen under the fight or fight hormone. So you can have your heart rate can increase, your respiration can increase. So you have like blood flows more to like your muscles and stuff like that. So there's a lot of stuff that adrenaline affects. So for the function, so it can increase your respiration, your heart rate, and other stuff. But the correct answer is C. Okay, 37. The diagram shows the pancreas and related structures. Which group of cells is the target hormone released by the pancreas? So what does the pancreas release in terms of this? Okay, so does anybody want to give me the name of the hormone that the pancreas releases? Or produces, I should say, yeah. So basically, the pancreas, right, it deals with insulin. And so insulin reduces the amount of blood glucose, okay? So the glucose level, if it's too high in your blood, the pancreas will release like, the pancreas will release insulin that tells your body, okay, listen, your blood has too much sugar in it, so you have to calm it down a little bit. So the thing is, yes, so the correct answer would be B. So why did you say, oh, it's actually, I got, well, my bad, yeah, D. Yeah, D. So why is it D? And D is the liver. It looks kind of confusing and jumbled up on the diagram, but D points to the liver. So why is it D? Why is it D? Does anybody know why? You want to explain to me?
The liver is used to like regulate The liver is the one that cleans the waste out the body. One of the ways that we clean the waste out the body, and it uses the insulin to do that.
Yeah. Also, too, a next way how you can get to the answer from this is that so the liver is actually responsible too for releasing glycogen. So that's basically stored up glucose, which is almost the opposite too of, it's basically the opposite of the purpose of insulin. So they go hand in hand, the liver and the pancreas. So basically the pancreas, it releases insulin to tell the body when the glucose levels is too high in the blood, it tells it to store the glucose, okay, into the liver. So that's what happens. That's why there's a correlation. So when insulin goes in your body, it stores the glucose, okay, and it stores it inside of the liver, and it stores it in the form of glycogen. So whenever the body needs sugar again, the liver can just easily break down the glycogen and return it back to glucose. Okay, so but when the insulin is produced by the pancreas, it turns it into glycogen, and it gets stored in the liver, and the liver is D. So that's why the answer is D. Which hormone is 38? Which hormone is responsible for the plant growth? Yes. Okay.
Thyroxine don't make no sense.
Okay. So the correct answer, yes. The correct answer is auxin. Auxin is the hormone that's responsible for plant growth. We know that we talked about adrenaline. Adrenaline is fight or flight. That's found in the human. It's not found in the plants. Insulin is found in the human. It's not found in plants. Helps to do with, as we talked about just now, the blood glucose levels and thyroxine.
Oh God, that was off.
It helps with some levels like salt, etc. in the human body, not found in plants. So the only answers are auxins, which is B. So goiters are usually caused by the malfunction of which endocrine gland? Yes. So the answer would be the thyroid gland. Okay. The gonads. What is the gonads? What is the function of the gonads? Does anybody know? So that's basically our sex glands. So that's like the testes and ovaries. Yes. The adrenal gland. That's responsible for producing adrenaline. That's right on top of your kidneys. So the adrenal gland is on top of your kidneys. That's responsible for the adrenaline. And the pancreas, as we talked about just now, is for insulin. So, and goiters are only caused by the thyroid. So, yeah, question. So 40. The diagram represents a kidney and associated structures. What is the name of the hormone released by structure P? Okay, so from structure P, we see that this is the kidney, and the gland found on top of the kidney is called the adrenal gland, and that produces adrenaline. Okay, so the correct answer would be A, the adrenal glands. Remember, that's always found on top of the kidneys, and that produces adrenaline. Just remember adrenaline, that's close in relation. So you should know that once the you know that the adrenal is found on top of, the adrenal gland is found on top of the kidneys. It produces adrenaline. So that's how you would arrive to the answer. We talked about insulin and those ready for oxygen and estrogen. So the correct answer would be A. Now for 41. Voluntary or conscious activities of the body are controlled by which part of the brain? Okay. This gives me an opportunity to ask some questions. So what does the medulla oblongata do? What is the function of the medulla oblongata? Can anybody give me like 2 functions?
Breathing, heartbeat.
Correct. Okay. Anything else? Involuntary actions like breathing, yes. Your heart rate, your respiration rate. So the medulla oblongata is in control for those things like your heart rate and your respiration rate, okay? The brainstem, basically self-explanatory right there. So can anybody tell me what does the cerebellum do?
Balance.
Cerebellum, okay. Anything else from anybody?
Coordination, muscular activity.
Okay, correct. And cerebrum. Cerebrum.
It deals with memory.
Cerebrum, yes, like memory, intelligence, etc. Now let's answer the question again. So voluntary and conscious activities of the body are controlled by which part of the brain? We say that mostly cerebrum deals with your memory and intelligence, etc. Right? So the cerebellum would mostly deal with your voluntary actions with like your muscles, etc. Okay? But still there are some parts of the cerebrum that takes part in voluntary or conscious activities, but for the most part, the cerebellum is what deals with that. So you guys don't mix up, like if they give you a diagram of the cerebrum and the cerebellum, which portion is bigger, the cerebellum or the cerebrum?
Cerebrum.
Just a question I'm asking. Which question is bigger? I mean, which part is bigger? Yes, the cerebrum. So the cerebrum is mostly the big part. It's divided into 2 hemispheres. You have your right hemisphere and you have your left hemisphere. So that big part of the brain you see at the top, that's your 2 hemispheres for your brain, which is the cerebrum. Okay, and under that, I should say it's only about quarter or less the size of the cerebrum is the cerebellum. So the cerebellum is smaller than the cerebrum. So just remember that in the exam, and the cerebrum is divided into 2 hemispheres. You have the left and you have the right sides that deals with the coordination in your body. Okay. So does everybody get that answer? So correct answer 41 would be B, which is cerebellum. So 42, which term describes the rods and the cones of the human eyes? Chemoreceptors, mechanoreceptors, photoreceptors, or thermoreceptors? Yes. So yes, correct answer is C. So from this question, you can get an easy elimination of answers because we know that chemoreceptors, it isn't chemoreceptors. Mechanical receptors would have to do with the muscles, etc. And thermoreceptors would have to do like with the skin and like sensitivity with like heat and stuff like that. And we know that eye, it's the closest, like kind of a relation thing. So photoreceptors are found within the eye, within the rods and cones to be exact. So the answer is C. 43. Which term describes a cell that has a single set of chromosomes? Okay. Yes. So correct answer is haploid. See, everybody said that, I think. Yes. So with diploid, if the question asks which term describes a cell that has two set of chromosomes, it would be diploid. Remember, di is 2. Haploid, ha is 1. Okay. But for this, they asked for a single set of chromosomes. So the answer would be D, haploid. Question 44. The diagram shows a flower of a pea plant. Which letters point to the structures that contains gametes? Okay, so the correct answer is B, R and S. Does anybody want to tell me what R and S is on the plan?
Sex organs.
Yeah, do you know exactly what sex organs are they? So what is S?
R is the answer.
Okay. And what would be S?
Ovum.
Yes. Okay.
The ovary.
Yeah. Oh, ovary. Okay. Does anybody know what P means?
Can you repeat that?
What would P be on this? The P representing the diagram.
That's the petals.
Petal.
So what would Q be?
The stigma.
Stigma. Okay. The stigma. So the style would be what connects the stigma to the ovary. Okay. So right here in the middle, right here where I have my arrow pointed, that would be the style right there. Okay. And S, as we said, would be the ovary right here. And then question, what would be this structure right here that's connected to the anther?
Filament.
Yes. What? Yes. So what are the two parts of the male reproductive part?
Anther and filament.
Okay. And the three parts of the female?
Stigma, style, ovary.
Okay, yes. And it goes from there. Stigma on the top. The style connects the stigma to the ovary down below. Okay. The answer would be B, because the answer would be B because R, right here by the anther you have the bowling greens right there. That's the male reproductive part. And down S you have the ovary with the ovules right down here, which is the female part of gametes. So the answer would be B. Okay, number 45. The diagram shows the structure of the human ear. Which label identifies the structure that contains sound receptors? Which label identifies the structure that contains sound receptors? So most I'm getting A, I'm getting a D, I'm getting C. Okay, let's go over these. I'm gonna go over everything. So what do we have at A? Right here. So A, we have the eardrum. Right here. Yes. On B, what do we have? What do we have with B right here? So
The malleus? No. Is it the malleus?
B is pointing. You have the ossicles, right? So B is pointing at all three ossicles. And so how I remembered in high school is that I would say miss, M-I-S, miss. You could easily remember miss. So the first one would be malleus, right? The middle one would be the incus. And then the third and last one would be the stapes. Okay, so that's how you can easily remember too, just in case they ask you a specific question. They might say, okay, which ossicle is this? This one here, or which ossicle is this, or this one. Just remember miss. M for the malleus, which is the first one. The second one would be the incus. And then the third one, that's connected to the cochlea, would be a stapes. Okay, so that's the easy way you can remember it. M-I-S, miss. Just think miss in terms of the ossicles. Malleus, incus, stapes. So what is C?
The semicircular canal.
And what does that help with, or what does that do? Does anybody know? What does the semicircular canal do? So the semicircular canal.
I think it's for maintaining balance.
Yes, it's for maintaining balance. Nice job, okay? So it helps us balance, okay? So there's fluid within the semicircular canals that moves around every time we move our heads and our bodies and help us to maintain a balance in our bodies, okay? Now that brings us to our last option, which is D, okay? So what is D? What is the structure D?
The cochlea.
Yes, and the cochlea is the structure that contains the sound receptors. So that's the correct answer. D, the cochlea. Okay. So can anybody tell me what are the ossicles for? What is the purpose of the ossicles? The malleus, the incus, and the stapes. Does anybody have an answer? Yeah, so they basically carry the sound waves from like one point to the next and amplifies them. Yes, correct. So, but this, for sound receptors, it would be D, the cochlea. So remember, A, we have the eardrum. B, we have our three bone ossicles in there, which are the malleus, which is the first one, the incus, which is the second, and the third one is the stapes. Remember MIS, just remember miss. C is our semicircular canal, which helps us with the balancing of our bodies. And D helps us with sound mostly, okay? And that contains the sound receptors, the cochlea, which is D. So 46 says, the pedigree chart shows a hemophiliac male with blue eyes. P, his wife Q is heterozygous for brown eyes with no hemophiliac trait. The gene for blue eyes is recessive. What is the probability that individual R is blue-eyed? Hemophiliac, sorry about that, the pronunciation. Wow, sorry about that. Hemophilia. Sorry, so you guys can see it right now. Okay, yes, this is it. So what is the probability that individual R is blue-eyed? It's taking about 2 minutes or so. Yeah, so see somebody with the correct answer. Okay, see some people say B. Does anybody have any other answers? So Okay, so let's go over this quickly. Okay, so how would we represent if the father, the male, right? If he has blue eyes, and remember that blue is recessive, right? If he has blue eyes, so recessive means that it's basically, I call it like the lowercase within the alleles, or within the alleles or within the gene. So if blue is recessive, that means that you would need two lows. Let's just say, for example, little b is used to represent blue, and big B is used to represent brown. Okay? So in order for a person to have blue eyes, he or she must have little b, little b. Okay? I wonder if I can show you guys this on 1 second. I wonder if I can show you guys this quickly. Oh no, it can't. It's not allowing me to. No, it's not allowing me to. So I have it on my notes, explain more. So say for example, okay, blue eyes, you must need little b, little b. And so that's for blue eyes. So for brown eyes, the person can either have capital B, or capital B, lowercase b. But in this case, they say that his wife is heterozygous, which means heterozygous means two different. Okay? So the reason why his wife isn't, and his wife has brown eyes. The reason why his wife isn't capital B is because that's homeozygous, okay? Because it's the same, okay? Capital B. But she can still have brown eyes, and she can still be capital B, lowercase b, because the capital B trumps the recessive genes. Does everybody understand? I want to make sure everybody understands that. Does everybody understand that? Why she's like heterozygous? So heterozygous means two different alleles. Yeah, two different alleles. So we said that we would annotate big B for brown and little b for blue. And she's heterozygous. So if she's heterozygous, I mean she must have two. And she's brown eyes. So her gene would say capital B, lowercase b, right? That's the female, that's the mom. And for the father, he would say little b, because it's recessive. And so if it's recessive, that means you must have two of the same alleles in order for you to have that recessive trait. Okay, so and this recessive trait is having blue eyes. So that means he's lowercase b. I wonder if you guys can see this carefully. I'll try to get this. My bad. I'll try to get this posted on to you guys my notes. But I want you to see this is how I easily do my pedigree diagram. So we have big B, little b there for the mom, and we have little b for the father. So what we would do in order to calculate the percentage of the chance that the offspring would be blue eyes is that we know that in order for the offspring to have blue eyes, the offspring must be little b. So we would write the genes out side by side like this, big case b, lowercase b, and then for the female and for the guy, we would write lowercase b, and we would just basically connect each of those. So we have 4 options, okay? And out of the 4 options, we see that there's a 50% chance that that the child will come out big B, little b, which means that he will have brown eyes because the big B is heterozygous. So it means he'll have brown eyes, and there's a next 50% chance that it will be homozygous recessive. So it means the child will have lowercase b. So it's a 50-50 chance, as you see there. So that's the easy way how I do my pedigree diagram. So does everybody get it from there? Like my diagram and everything, how I calculate it easy and fast, so you don't get confused. Okay, good. And if you have any questions too, you can just feel free to ask or email or whatever. Okay, so 47, we're almost done. Which is an example of a vegetative reproduction? Yes. Yeah, see, in this case too, unfortunately, we have conflicting answers where it can actually be B, which is spotting. It could actually be macrocarding too. C, it can actually be C, or it can be D. And I have proof of that. So in situations like these, like when you're in a compromised situation, to be honest, you can just pick either one. But this, it's all answers make sense, to be honest. All answers make sense, except for A, of course. Binary fission comes when you have, let's just say you have a parent cell and it splits in two, right? So binary fission is of the answer. But vegetative reproduction, it actually can happen from budding, from macrocutting, as well as spore formation. So yes, so Taylor was correct. But macrocutting is actually one too. So that's a conflicting answer we'll just have to deal with, unfortunately. That may be a mistake because there's more than one. I'm sure there's more than one answer in this question right here. So 48, the diagram shows the hormones and the changes of the uterus lining in the human female menstrual cycle. Which hormone is represented by letter Q? So which hormone is represented by letter Q? Letter Q. So I see most of you said estrogen, but the correct answer would be C, estrogen. Okay, so look at the time, right? You see that Q doesn't really start until, so C. So you can see that Q doesn't really start until, like, I would say it's approximately like the 14th day within the menstrual cycle. That's when estrogen would be made, okay? And estrogen, it basically helps prepare the ovary and the body, etc., for pregnancy, just in case there's a fertile egg, okay? So it basically comes after the start, as you can see here. So the fine line, well, the solid line, I should say, would represent estrogen. So if they asked us, or if Q was on this solid line here, that would be estrogen, okay? So estrogen happens from the start of the menstrual cycle all the way to the end, okay? So it just fluctuates in terms of the concentration, okay? Because as you can see, it starts off low and then there's an increase, right? And when we get a decrease in estrogen, that's when we see the estrogen start to be made, okay? And this happens around like the 14th day or so. There's no exact date, but that's an estimate. So estrogen happens when the period when the menstrual cycle is already in the making, or it's already happened within like 2 weeks. So Q would be estrogen. Does everybody understand that? So estrogen doesn't come until the middle of the menstrual cycle. Okay, so let me start off with estrogen, which is this fine line. Okay, so does anybody want to give me the definite, so estrogen, what does it do for the body? What does it help the body with? What does it do when estrogen is produced?
It's used for the regulation and development of the female reproductive system and secondary sex characteristics.
Exactly. And as well, when it comes to the menstrual cycle, right? So when I'm talking like specifically, that's correct. When I'm talking specifically about the menstrual cycle, the estrogen, it basically thickens the uterus lining. Okay, so So that's why like they're shedding and stuff like that, you know, thickening of the uterus lining. So that's the purpose of estrogen when it comes to the menstrual cycle. You have two more. Two more. Okay. So the diagram below shows pollen grains from 4 different plants. So which option correctly identifies the method of pollination? We have the first one that shows a smooth pollen grain. The second one shows a pollen grain that has spikes. The third one shows a sticky pollen grain. And the fourth one shows air-filled pollen grain. So which option correctly identifies the method of pollination? Okay, correct. So the answer is B. So smooth makes it easier to be carried by the wind. And with smooth, it won't attach to animals easily, like insect pollination. So that's why the first pollen grain is mostly made for wind. The second one has spikes because, like say for example, if the bee or wasp comes around, it can easily attach to their body with the little fur that they have. So this one, it would mainly be by insect pollination because it sticks to their body or their coat. The same with 3, it's sticky. So that means it's easy, for example, like bees, it can easily stick to their body. And for the last one, which is air-filled means it's hollow. So it means that it can easily be dispersed by winds in like a great vast direction or distance, I should say. So air-filled means that it's easily carried by the wind all about the place. So the answer is B. You have wind, insect for the spikes, and sticky for the insects. And then you have air-filled, which is wind. So the correct answer would be B. Okay, the last one in this for the multiple choice. Oh gosh. Sorry for that. I think this is the last question from the multiple choice that we'll be doing today. Sorry about that. So last one. Okay. The diagram shows a type of nerve cell. What role does it play in pupillary reflex? And the keyword you can get from this is pupil, right here. That's a keyword how you can easily find the answer. So what role does it play in the pupillary reflex? Yes. So in the pupillary reflex, that's when there's a change in light. So if you notice, like if you shine a light to your eye, you will notice that if someone looks into your eye, you will notice that your pupil, it gets smaller and bigger. That is because light entering the eye, if you shine a light in your eye compared to like the normal light in this room, it's different. So if I like get my camera and I shine a light directly into my eye, since there's more light coming into my eye to protect my eye, so to protect like my cells and stuff in my eye, so my pupil would become smaller, right? So less light can enter my eye to protect it. So that deals with in terms of it changing the size of the pupil. That's called a pupillary reflex. Okay, that's when like light comes into your eye at different intensities, I should say. So when light comes in your eyes at different intensities, and if you do it really fast, like with a light, if someone just goes like this and shine a light in your eye, they'll be able to see. And when they see your pupil getting smaller like this, that's called a pupillary reflex. And that is done by the changing of the size of the pupil. Okay, so I think that concludes for the multiple choice that we'll be doing tonight. Sorry about that, I know that was kind of long. But yeah, so yeah, that's it. And I know most of you guys said that you're doing extended, so that means that I'll try to cover some paper 3 and some paper 2s. Yeah, for sure paper 2, but some paper 3s throughout the boot camp. Since most of you guys are doing extended, I have some tips and stuff on how to answer questions on paper 3, because paper 3 is really, really important if you're doing extended. But yeah, so next I think I'll do paper 2. I think I'll do a paper 2 on Thursday. Either paper 2 or next multiple choice. So what I want to do too is I want to try to send a poll out, or if I cannot see, I think you guys answered when you joined this meeting. Well, when you signed up, I should say, that to see where do you see yourself struggling most in terms of topics. I want to see where you guys need the most help and stuff like that, so I can just take some time out to specifically explain those topics. So when you see an answer, just in case you didn't go over it in these past paper sessions, you will be able to answer it since these were explained to you already, okay? So that'll be it for this session. So yeah, that's it. Thank you guys for coming. I hope you guys had a lot of knowledge you received from the session. If there's any questions or anything, you can feel free to, I guess, email me from jamal@yahoo.com, or you can just ask me in the next session, okay? So does anybody have any questions before we end the session? Any questions? Or anything you want to see differently next session, which is on Thursday? No? Okay. Okay, so hopefully you understood, everybody understood everything and the reason why we chose those answers, and hopefully you got clarification on a lot of topics. Can you post the email in the chat? Yeah. Okay, to be honest, if you're doing past papers by yourself, and I want to express too that doing past papers and practicing past papers are really, really well in helping you prepare for the exam. So I would encourage you on your own, not only on the session, to practice past papers. See how they ask the questions, and also there's actually a small chance that they can repeat a question, so you never know. But see how they ask the questions, see how they structure the questions and what's not. So it's best to practice, just practice and practice. But if you're doing past papers and you don't know the answer, or you were confused about the answer or question, you can feel free to email me, and if it's a session, I can email you back with an answer and an explanation if I have one, okay? So if you're stuck on a question, you don't know it, you can just email me, and I'll be happy to answer the question, okay? So hope you guys have a good evening. Thanks for coming to the session, okay? Take care.